Here is my favorite definition of mindfulness. It is the ability to know what is happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it or acting out on it. I wish I'd said that, but actually it was psychologist Dan Harris in his book Inhabit the Thought. The classic definition comes from John Kabat-Zinn, who founded the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. Mindfulness is the awareness that emerges through paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to the unfolding of experience moment by moment. That's lovely too. But Harris's definition seems like something I want to start on right now. Remember, he says it is the ability to know what is happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it or acting out on it. I want to have that ability. So how do I get that ability, that power over my random thoughts? First, I practice. I practice noticing my thoughts by sitting down and deciding that for 10 or 15 minutes, or maybe just 5 minutes, that I will focus primarily on the breath coming in through my nose and out through my mouth. Okay, sounds easy enough. But what we know from our experience of trying not to worry about something, or from our experience of trying to spend even just 1 minute focusing only on breathing, or only on the image of the clear blue sky, what we know is that the mind goes all over everywhere really fast. So we need to give ourselves a break and not worry about how we start worrying when we're trying to calm our minds. It helps to understand some attitudes that are essential to practicing mindfulness and essential to developing the benefits of mindfulness for the moments of our lives when we find our attention wandering, when we can't focus on the written words in front of us, or when we're facing a difficult situation. So what attitudes am I talking about? They are, and there's 7, non-judging, patience, beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, acceptance, and letting go. If you listen to that list of attitudes, it sounds like a nice way to live. Not being judgmental, being patient, curious, confident, relaxed, aware, and realistic. We can practice living that way by approaching mindfulness that way. Remember Harris's definition? Mindfulness is the ability to know what is happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it or acting out on it. Practice gives us that ability. So I'll talk a bit about each one of the essential attitudes of mindfulness. The first is non-judging. If you were to stop and notice, you might be surprised to realize that your thoughts, everybody's thoughts, are constantly judging, deciding whether something, someone, or we ourselves are good or bad. You can experiment by walking around a block for 5 minutes, taking note of how many times your thoughts are making a judgment call. Here is my mind's journey one afternoon as I walked down a city street. Oh, it's cold, 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 too cold. That girl has cute shoes. Oh, a little dog. It had better not jump on me, like my cousin's dog. So slobbery. I want those shoes. I bet her feet hurt, but she'd never admit it. My feet hurt in these old, worn-down flats. Ow, ow. How much further do I have to go? It's too cold. Those shoes are cute. I'm going to look online for those shoes. But I have to pay taxes this month. I should have saved more. I should have saved more. I should have saved more. I might as well buy those shoes. I'm going to be in debt anyway. I should have saved more. And that wasn't even a whole minute's worth of thought. The main thing for us to acknowledge is that our thoughts are forever unconsciously judging everything. That's what the mind does. However, we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to stop it. We don't have to feel bad that we judge things, because then that leads to more judging. And we just want the ability to know what is happening in our heads at any given moment, right? So I say to myself, interesting. I thought about cold, shoes, dogs, taxes, debt, and shoes. When we sit still and practice noticing our breathing, and then start to think about shoes or dogs or cold, or when will we ever stop doing this mindfulness exercise, we can note whatever arises, call it thought, and go back to the breathing. That's non-judging. Then after a while, when we have non-judging thoughts about others or ourselves, we recognize them more readily. We catch ourselves and move to something more positive. The next attitude of mindfulness is patience. So, I can't schedule for the world? Then fine. I have to understand that life will unfold in its own time, and that there are many things I cannot control. The feelings or reactions of other people, for example. So why even be impatient with myself when I have negative thoughts? After all, I'm having them anyway. I can notice. I can say, well, Eleanor dear, listen to you. Sometimes when our minds wander, the thoughts are pleasant. A memory of playing in the ocean might arise, or we may be anticipating a party we think will be fun. Or sometimes we can get angry just thinking of something. I can be brushing my teeth in the morning and suddenly realize I'm off in some episode from the past thinking, I can't believe she had the nerve to say that to me. I should have said, I'm not a morning person. This happens to me more than I'd like to admit. But I catch myself more quickly now, and I can have a sense of humor about it. Well, yeah, you could have said that, Eleanor, but since you didn't even think of your snappy response until 2 months later, how is that possible? Why not come back to the moment I am currently in? Come back to what is possible. What is mindfulness, and what does mindfulness have to do with studying? To answer, I will review the habits of our minds, explain the practice of mindfulness, and point out the benefits of mindfulness to college students. So many times we sit down to study or read with the best intentions, to concentrate for at least an hour, but what do our minds do? A while back, I opened up my new book, Contemplative Practices in Higher Education. I know how it might sound, but it really is an interesting book. So I started reading about attention and analytical problem solving, and where does my mind go after a few minutes? It was, okay, if there are 200 pages in this book and it just took me 5 minutes to read and take notes on 3 pages, how long will I need to finish? Wait a minute. I'm reading a book about the importance of attention and my mind is wandering. So I read another paragraph and circle words and write notes in the margin, and the next thing I know, I'm thinking, I'll never be able to figure out how to export a recording from my computer. The Audacity program really needs so many extras. I wonder if the IT people can add what I need. Yeah, but the microphone I bought is really cool. Whoa, what am I thinking now? The next thing I know, I'll be planning my dinner. It's not just me, is it? I can show you. Take a moment to calm your mind. Imagine the sky the way it looks in North Carolina on a crisp, clear October afternoon. Just take a minute to think only of that calm, open vista. I'll tell you when a minute is up. So what happened? You stayed focused on that lovely image and didn't think of another thing? Or no? It's great if you did stay focused, but it's really okay also if your mind skipped from thought to thought or got lost in a whole story. Why does the mind lose focus on the image so easily? Because that is how the human mind is wired. The natural state of the human mind is not the calm, tranquil state. That state is accessible to us, but the natural state is what Kelly McGonigal, a noted behavioral psychologist, calls time traveling. Going to the future? What will I do when this assignment is over? Slipping into the past? Why didn't I start this earlier? So, how are we ever going to concentrate on our reading and studying then? Well, we have to discipline our minds to stay with the current task, like we discipline a dog to stay, like we teach a toddler to sit still. So like the dog and the toddler, the mind has to practice. We practice mindfulness. What can you do when your mind goes blank as soon as you sit down to take a test and your mind stays blank? This happens to more people more often than you might think. Now, I'm not talking about not knowing the material on the test. I'm not talking about the time I spent the whole night before a history exam putting a chronological list of the U.S. presidents to the tune of My Country 'Tis of Thee. It went like this: Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, John Quincy. Yeah, I got 5 extra points for listing all the U.S. presidents in order, but I hadn't learned any of the definitions for the multiple choice questions. That was obviously a case of being unprepared. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when the information I've studied for weeks and practiced in the ILC just disappears from my brain as I read the first question. Most likely because I'm so anxious that I can't concentrate, can't focus, I can't stay with the test. Perhaps I'm thinking about how I'll fail this test, how hard this subject is, how the instructor doesn't understand me, how much I need this course to get my degree, how I may never graduate because I'm so stupid, how I'll never get the job I want. In other words, feeding the discursive thought that feeds my anxiety, that blurs my concentration, that shuts down my mind so that I can't access knowledge that is truly stored in my memory bank. What do I do then? I have found techniques that work for students, so I'll share. One thing you can do is take 1 minute to focus on something completely different from the test. Now, don't begrudge this 1 minute. Even on a time test, 1 minute is nothing in the grand scheme of things if your mind isn't working. So take 1 minute to focus on any item on your desk. It doesn't have to be anything unusual, something that's permissible to have out on your desk during the test, like a water bottle. I carry around glass water bottles made by the Voss company, for example. Say I'm in a classroom. The exam is on my desk, and it might as well be written in hieroglyphics because I've totally lost focus. So I take a minute to examine this common object, my water bottle. It has a gray top. The letters Voss, V-O-S-S, run vertically up the bottle. Tiny print spells out artisan water from Norway. I smile because I have long since drunk the artisan water from Norway. Now it looks classy, but it's Wegtech water from the filtered water fountain. Next, the water bottle reminds me of my student Mia, who made me promise never to drink out of plastic water bottles again because she read about the chemicals that can seep into certain plastics when they get hot. She said, "I don't want you to die, Miss Eleanor." See how I let my mind carry me where it wanted to go for just 1 minute. I could have added my other thoughts about how I'd never listened to my husband, who hated to spend money on anything, much less free water, but I won't go there. The goal is to de-stress, after all. But changing our focus like this for just a minute can reset our attention. For 1 minute, I haven't been thinking about how I'll fail this test, how hard this subject is, how the instructor doesn't understand me, how much I need this course to get my degree, how I may never graduate because I'm so stupid, how I'll never get the job I want. In other words, feeding the discursive thought that feeds my anxiety, that blurs my concentration, that shuts down my mind, so that I can't access knowledge that is truly stored in my memory bank. I have been thinking about a water bottle and a great former student. After a moment like that, you can redirect your attention to the test. I'm going to guide you through a practice of a breathing exercise called the 4-7-8 breath. To begin, I'll ask you to start by sitting in a comfortable, upright position with your back straight and yet relaxed. Once you've practiced the 4-7-8 breath, you can use it anywhere to gain a sense of equilibrium and calm. You can use it in the middle of a test if your mind suddenly goes blank. You can use it while you're standing in a long line, or even when you're trying to fall asleep at night. You can also use it during moments of distress when you feel anxious or depressed. So now that you're sitting straight up in a comfortable position, place the tip of your tongue against the bony ridge just above your upper front teeth. You're going to have your tongue in contact with this ridge throughout the exercise. Keep your tongue in as relaxed a position as possible while maintaining this contact. So just to practice once to start, exhale through your mouth and around your tongue. Now close your mouth and breathe in quietly through your nose, counting silently to 4. Next, hold your breath, counting to 7 silently. And then exhale completely through your mouth, counting silently to 8. The sequence of inhaling for 4, holding the breath for 7, and then exhaling for 8 is considered one breath. Now I'll be doing this exercise with you as you practice. If the pace I set is not comfortable, just make any adjustments you need to, but maintain the ratio of 4-7-8. Through the exercise, see if you can remain as relaxed as possible, inhaling, holding your breath, exhaling easily and comfortably without strain. So to practice, we are going to do a sequence of 4 breaths. Each inhalation, holding, and exhalation is one breath. To begin, inhale for a count of 4, 2, 3, 4. And hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then exhale for 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, inhale for a count of 4, 2, 3, 4, and hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then exhale for 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, inhale for a count of 4, 2, 3, 4, and hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and exhale for 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, inhale for a count of 4, 2, 3, 4, and hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then exhale for 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that was one sequence of 4 breaths. Just to review, you will always inhale quietly through your nose and exhale through your mouth with the tip of your tongue on the bony ridge above your upper front teeth. The amount of time for each exhalation is twice as long as each inhalation. If you find you have to speed up or slow down the pace, just be sure to keep the 4-7-8 ratio. It's common at first to feel more comfortable speeding up the sequence. As you get more practice, your breathing process will likely become slower and deeper. So at first practice the 4-7-8 breath a couple of times a day, using 4 breaths for each practice. For the first months, use 4 breaths at a time and no more. After a month, if you'd like, you can experiment with more breath at a time, going up to 8. You will find the 4-7-8 breath to be a very helpful technique to use when you're stressed, physically tense, upset, or anxious, as well as when you're in bed wanting to drift off into sleep. While you may notice a small effect when you first use the 4-7-8 breath, over time, with practice, its benefits become much more evident. Have you ever thought about all the intricate processes that occur in our bodies without our ever even having to think about them? Our hearts are just pumping away, our blood is therefore coursing through our veins, and our brains are constantly translating upside-down images sent from our retinas. Now think of this. The breath is the only involuntary physical process that we can consciously control. We don't have to think about breathing, luckily, but we can control it. That's power. You can't just decide to increase or decrease the amount of insulin your pancreas is producing, but right now you can deliberately control how deeply you're breathing. Is your breath coming from high up in your chest, in short, shallow puffs, or is it beginning deep in your abdomen in a long, deep pull? You can decide to change it. For years, health practitioners have known that the breath can heal and calm our bodies and minds. Many recommend working with the breath to make our inhalations and exhalations slower and deeper, because slow, deep breaths and brief periods of holding our breaths prompt beneficial changes in our nervous system. Now here comes an important science moment. Neurologically speaking, deep breaths and temporarily holding the breath allow the parasympathetic nervous system to assume control of our internal physiological processes like the production of hormones and heart rate. A certain ratio of certain hormones, that didn't sound scientific. A higher ratio of the neurosteroid DHEA to cortisol helps us feel relaxed, secure, and sociable. A regular heart rate can make us feel calm and comfortable. That's what happens when the parasympathetic nervous system is in control. However, when we feel anxious or fearful, our sympathetic nervous system takes over, pumping out adrenaline and constricting our blood vessels. That is what happens when we react to danger, and sometimes just when we have a thought about something we dread. You know, that immediate physical symptom like a stomach pang, or that sudden feeling of tension, anxiety, or even fear from a thought. But remember, we can control the breath. and the breath allows the parasympathetic nervous system to take over so that we feel calm. Therefore, when you are upset, for example, anxious in the middle of a test, you can use breathing techniques to help your body and mind to gain a sense of equilibrium, ease, and calm. The more you practice at various times of the day, no matter how you're feeling, the easier it becomes to remember to use the breath in a moment of crisis. Mindfulness, the essential attitude of trust. Of the essential attitudes for the practice of mindfulness, we have looked at non-judging, patience, and beginner's eye. Next is trust. So I've been circling around this quality, wondering what I can say, enough so that I started asking myself, what is so hard for me about talking about trust? I trust lots of people. I trust my 2 sons and my daughter-in-law. They have my back. My sisters can boast of a long track record of being trustworthy and loving me unconditionally. I always trust my supervisor here at work. She truly has my best interests in mind and looks for ways to encourage me to grow. And even though I don't have a wide social circle, I have a core of close friends whom I trust explicitly. And I know I'm lucky to be able to make this list. So why am I turning talking about trust into a chore? Why am I making this so hard? Well, when we talk about trust with mindfulness, we're not talking so much about trusting others. We're talking about trusting ourselves, trusting our own intuition, not looking outside ourselves for guidance or affirmation. Oh ho, that's the hard part for me. So to figure out why trusting myself is hard for me, I decided to think about my personality type. I'm all the time thinking about personality type, so it's inevitably going to get in the mix with my mindfulness thoughts. I had the privilege of attending CAP's program to be certified to administer the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. I love this assessment process because it's the opposite of the stereotyping that some assume follows a type analysis. Instead, it's a way to recognize our innate preferences in a no-judgment zone. See the mindfulness parallel? Non-judging. We can then use that information, that self-awareness, mindfulness again. We can use that self-awareness to recognize what motivates us, understand why others often choose to behave differently than we do, and realize why some circumstances make us uncomfortable. My innate preference is to make decisions, large or small, every day by considering the effects they will have on the other individuals involved, not by logically analyzing the pros and cons as many do, but by projecting how my decision will affect others. Along with that, I hate conflict, and I seek harmony. So, what is often the cost of this sensitivity? In my long marriage, I slipped into a pattern of people-pleasing. When I decided to quit my university teaching job to be a full-time mother, I gradually adopted my husband's view of the ideal wife and mother, which was, unfortunately, at least 20 years behind the times. I thought, since I was not contributing a concrete sum of money, that my best plan would be to agree to do whatever he wanted to do and wanted me to do or not do, or whatever he wanted me to do for or with our sons. I was keeping the peace and the harmony by avoiding conflict. But in the meantime, I was looking outside myself for affirmation, and I was not trusting my own tuition. When my younger son became involved with drugs, I woke up. I started relying on my intuition to make the decisions that I knew would help him. The hard work was his, but I made sure the family dynamics were no longer an obstruction. He's been clean and sober for 9.5 years now. By practicing mindfulness, I am no longer trying to be someone I am not. I found a job I love that allows me to work in all areas of my preferences. I help students in the Writing and Study Skills Center find possibilities and potential for themselves, while I pursue my research and my professional interests as well. My only hope is to take responsibility for being my true self, to trust in my own wisdom and goodness. This essential attitude of trust helps us honor our own feelings and decisions. Why should we discount ours as invalid just because some feel or think differently? The essential attitudes for practicing mindfulness. This is part 2. Okay, so far as we approach mindfulness, we are practicing non-judging, not judging each and every item, person, thought, vacation, weather pattern, animal, vegetable, or mineral we encounter. Also, we are seeing what it's like to be patient with ourselves, to see what it's like not to judge ourselves in relation to others throughout the day. Next, as we examine another essential practice for mindfulness, we hope to develop a beginner's mind, meaning a childlike wonder, meeting each day, each moment with curiosity, and without letting any preconceived ideas interfere with our perception. The idea is to see what is really there. Each fall in the Writing Center here at Wake Tech, we tutors and the ILC help English students understand their responsibility to analyze an assigned essay, one written by Walker Percy called Loss of the Creature. It is a very profound essay about critical thinking that leads the readers to explore critical thinking. It's very dense, and in its presence, many students lurch towards despair. However, once we crack the code, it's eye-opening. One of my favorite passages describes how difficult it is for us as tourists in the 21st century to see a natural wonder like the Grand Canyon without bringing along a bunch of stuff from other people and other sources. When I started planning my visit to that natural park 10 years ago, of course I had already seen innumerable pictures of the Grand Canyon and clips from nature videos. I had also heard a lot on the subject from my mother, who had hated getting up at 4 a.m. to join an expedition led by my father to watch the sunrise over the canyon, when she, unlike my father, thought an 8 a.m. view from the hotel window would have been just swell. She had polished the story down to a 5-minute diatribe by the time I was 7. Later, despite growing up with this legend about snakes and wild burros and bitter cold and fog, my sister decided to go with her young family. So I got a new version from her. She wept at the beauty. She marveled at the expanse of time represented by the layers of strata. She pored over her guidebooks and the park displays, trying to identify the dinosaur layer for her Stegosaurus-obsessed 6-year-old son. Plus, she found beautiful turquoise jewelry in the gift shop at the Grand Canyon Inn. So I thought maybe I could go there after all. But was I ready to approach the Grand Canyon with a beginner's eye? No. I started comparing my trip to my sister's before I ever arrived. My husband didn't want to spend the amount of money it would take to stay at the luxurious on-site 4-star immaculate breakfast offering lodge that my sister had stayed in. We stayed in a motel on the highway with spiders and a thin wall, and listened to a woman in the next room repeatedly wail, "You don't understand me." I was eager to get into the park the next morning, and I annoyed my husband by refusing to shop for turquoise jewelry at a yard sale next to the motel. I was ready to get to the official gift shops. Therefore, as my husband pitched our car into the curves of the winding drive into the park, I was not only carsick, but I was also peeved with my cheapskate revenge-exacting husband, and hungry because we'd eaten peanut butter crackers for breakfast instead of a hotel meal. Did I mention envy of my sister and a peculiar resemblance to my mother? Even so, as the car whipped around a new turn, I stopped mid-grumble and was transfixed. The clutter whooshed out of my head for one moment because suddenly there was my first view of the Grand Canyon. My Grand Canyon. The abrupt switch from negativity to awe jolted me into an awareness of what was there, what I was seeing. Unfortunately, the rest of the experience was cluttered with paved walkways, tram schedules, and directional signs. But I often try to reenact that moment in the moment. I experiment sometimes by seeing if I can look at my younger son with fresh eyes, as if we've just met that day. That gets very interesting. I try not to take the ordinary for granted. I try to see with a beginner's eye. When I practice mindfulness, I try to dismiss the expectation of what the session will be, because each moment in meditation is unique, just as each moment in life is unique. Begin by sitting in a chair or on a cushion on the floor with your back straight. Either close your eyes or rest them with a soft gaze on a point nearby. Relax into your sitting posture with a few deep breaths. Allow the body and mind to become utterly relaxed while remaining very alert. Sweep your awareness through your body, feeling the sensations with no agenda, no goal, just staying mindful of these sensations. Now, shift your awareness to the sounds that you hear. Be aware of both the pure sound vibration and the space or silence between the sounds. As with body sensations, incline your awareness away from the definition of the sound or thoughts about the sound and simply attune to the sound just as it is. Next, bring your attention to your natural breathing process. Locate the area where the breath is most clear and let awareness lightly rest there. For some, it is the sensation of the rising and falling of the abdomen. For others, it may be the sensations experienced at the nostrils with the inhalation and exhalation. Let the breath breathe itself without control, direction, or force. Feel the full breath cycle from the beginning through the middle to the end. The awareness is a combination of receptivity, like listening, an alert, attentive presence. Let go of everything else, or let it be in the background. Just let the breathing breathe itself. As soon as you notice the mind wandering off, lost in thought, be aware of that without judging, and gently return again to your breath. Now slowly open your eyes or bring your gaze forward and take a final deep breath.